Hello folks, Scott here with my 10 cards, 1 kit video featuring the Love From Lizi November 2020 card kit. This is Lizi's Warm Winter Wishes card kit. As usual, I do take the colored cardstock provided in our kit and cut them in half and make my card bases from those. I tell you, sometimes these colors alone will inspire a card from me. If you followed me at all, you know that one of my goals in these 10 cards is to try and use all of the stamps in our stamp set. This deer stamp really caught my eye to begin with. So that's where we start this month. On our navy card base, we have Season's Greetings, with two, yes, count them, two of the deer on the front there. That's a lovely deer stamp, and I was thrilled to be able to do a reverse stamping. Here's a quick reminder of how I do my reverse stamping. So here's my stamp platform. Please pardon the glare. Here's my Fiskars silicone mat. Inexpensive, good silicone. I'm just going to lay it in the corner of my stamp platform here, and it will slide around, so I'm going to just throw the magnets on top of it. I'll take a scrap of watercolor paper. We're going to be stamping on this side, so I'm just got a tape hinge on it here, but the tape is not going to stick to the silicone, so I just threw my magnets on that hinge, so I should be able to just flip this over and back, and it'll go back in the same spot every time. Let's use our flamingo stamp for this. Let's do her reverse stamp. Let's do her over here on this side. Okay, so fold that back. Pick her up with the lid. We'll just use some VersaFine Onyx Black ink. Stamp her down on the silicone. Nice impression. Flip our watercolor paper over on its hinge. Give it a nice little press. Open it back up. That's a really good first generation. Really good for reverse stamping. One more time, we can do it one more time. This is watercolor paper, so it does have a little bit of texture to it. We'll stamp our flamingo once more on the silicone. Then bring our hinged piece back over. Press it lightly. Press it well. And there, a terrific reverse stamp. Any silicone pad will do this for you. Use this double hinge method here, and you can reverse stamp a couple of times on textured paper. Love this mat. So on a piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock, I reverse stamped our deer on the left here, and then forward stamped, regular stamped, the deer on the right. I colored them both up with my Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers, added a little bit of a horizon line and a touch of a shadow underneath them. That's all this really, really needed. Very soft colors on both of these reindeer. I stamped the sentiment in the center here with VersaFine Onyx Black ink and embossed that with some clear embossing powder, so that has a little bit of shine there too. I die cut that colored panel with a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die, matted that onto a thin light blue mat, and then down to our navy card base. For a final touch, I added a sprinkling of all these little snow sequins from my stash. I love these little things, but they are so nice, very sparkly. Season's Greetings, that lovely reindeer stamp. Then we have those two short little penguin stamps as well. Penguins are always fun to color, generally easy to color. I mean, they're kind of black and white. On our soft pink card base, we've got What'll I Do Without You? Waddle, 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 waddle. This is the larger of the two penguin stamps. He's attached here on one of those mini action wobblers. I love that. He'll lay down flat to go through the mail and then pops up and waddles. I don't think anything waddles quite as much as a penguin does. I stamped the penguin on some Bristol Smooth cardstock, colored him with my Zig Clean color markers, and then fussy cut him out, leaving just a thin white edge around him. I cut this penguin pattern paper to 2 inches by 5 inches and put that on a thin black mat, glued that down to my card base. I printed up this sentiment using my Silhouette software and the Cooper Black font. The Cooper Black font. I printed that up on a scrap of cardstock. I die cut that out with a Hero Arts Nesting Circle Infinity die. I also used one of those dies for the black mat behind there, glued those both together. I added one of the skinny peel-offs from our peel-off pack right there between those two circles. It worked very well, and those skinny peel-offs will actually take a curve fairly decently. It stays there very well. I glued those down on top of the pattern paper and the card base, and then I attached my little penguin with an action wobbler. I did add a little bit of shadow underneath him, just with my colored pencils, just a little bit so he wasn't floating on nothing at all. What'll I do without you? Waddle, 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 waddle. We've also got some of the glitter enamel dots here, and of course, some more of those little snowflake sequins. What'll I do without you? So that was our big penguin in our stamp set. We've also got a smaller penguin. I colored them both up at the same time, thinking I'd use them together before I went off on this tangent. So for our little penguin guy on the marine blue card base, we've got our shaker card. Here's our shaker card. I'm trying to avoid the glare. There we go. I'm playing with some new lights in my old craft room today. So, oh, there's a nice one. So if you look close, you can see I actually stamped that old Snowflake Infinity stamp from Lizi. We got this a long time ago. This was in the November of 2018 kit, this Snow Infinity stamp. I stamped that directly on this marine blue card base. In the background there, I stamped it using some unicorn white Hero Arts ink and then tried to emboss that with some clear embossing powder. It didn't work as well as I thought it would. And if I do that again, I'll definitely just use Versamark ink and some white embossing powder. But there are snowflakes in the background there. I don't know if you can see that on camera or not. I did cut a piece of white cardstock to go behind the printed part of our acetate sheet here. So it's cut just along that horizon line. I attached that to the acetate on the 3 sides and left the top open so you can get some of those sequins down there in the snow. I die cut the red glitter frame and the sentiment using some Doris glitter paper and my Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle dies. Of course, this is the die from the kit. I added some foam tape behind the frame and along the horizon line, and then filled it up with a bunch of those snowflake sequins and glued that down to my card base. Then I took that ephemera piece that had the igloo and the 2 trees. I glued a bunch of old, these are old Simon Says stamp colorful confetti sequins. So I glued those all over the igloo and in the trees. Our little penguin is mounted down here with some foam tape. He's got one more ornament in his hand left to put up. This is really fun. There you go. Those almost light up that igloo and those trees. I really like this card. Merry Christmas. That's our little shaker card this month using our acetate sheet from the kit. Merry Christmas. He just seemed like the right size for this igloo. And then we also have the Arctic Fox stamp in our kit. Really pretty stamp. This is on the mint green cardstock, and we've got another Merry Christmas card with that lovely Arctic fox, although I didn't color her like an Arctic fox. I colored her like a regular fox. She just hasn't turned white yet this winter. It has snowed, we can see. I created our little background here using my Spectrum Noir alcohol markers, and I originally colored her little den here. I originally colored that all in dark black, but it didn't look very good. I didn't care for that very much. It was just a little too flat or something, I think. So I just cut that out, and I cut a mat to go around my die cut background here, and then added some color on that same mat in the hole opening there. I think that gives it some really nice dimension. I think you really tell that, yes, that is our fox's den. Little den under the snowbank there. I stamped all of the 3 tree stamps in our stamp set here, and behind the fox I used peeled paint and forest moss distress oxide ink, 1st generation and 2nd generation stamping. Just some light suggestion of a hillside with my alcohol markers, and a little bit of broken china distress oxide ink blended into the sky back here for a light touch of blue in the sky. The sentiment is stamped in cracked pistachio distress oxide ink and embossed with some clear embossing powder. I cut this piece of pattern paper down to 4 inches by 5 1/4, glued that down to my card base, added my matted background piece to that, and then glued my fox on top with some foam tape. Merry Christmas, very pretty fox. Now, a number of people have said, are those extra legs or what? And I do get what they mean. If I stamp this again, I might trim off these 2 little extra long hairs on the back there. I think because of this stamped part here that looks like a leg, when you first glance at it, it kind of looks like she's lifting her leg. So I might just trim off these 2 little extra long pieces of fur here next time I stamp that. It's definitely worth an experiment. Merry Christmas, pretty little fox with green eyes. So that actually covers all of the image stamps in our stamp set. So let's play with some of that fun ephemera. We got so much ephemera in this kit. On the soft gray cardstock, we've got our Warm Wishes card with 2 of our ephemera polar bears kissing down there on the front. I really like this card. I love those polar bears, especially that pattern paper has the polar bears snuggling nose to nose, kissing each other. I use these 2 because they both have sweaters on. Warm Wishes, they're definitely keeping warm. For my background here, I cut a piece of pattern paper. This little striped bit on the bottom is actually from the polar bear pattern paper, and this is from the blue border pattern paper. The top is 2 inches wide, and the bottom here is just a little under 1 inch. They went so well together that I didn't even bother to try and camouflage the seam where the ground meets the sky. I thought it worked just perfectly. I glued those down to the soft gray card base and then outlined those with some of the Love From Lizi red glitter peel-offs. I stamped this sentiment using Versamark ink and embossed that with some Love From Lizi cherry red embossing powder. Perfect, goes along with those peel-offs excellently. I love that the heart tucks down right there, almost right between their noses. Kissy kissy, warm wishes, snuggle snuggle, kissy kissy. Love those polar bears. We also got a ton of walrus in our embellishment bag. I think I had a dozen different walruses. I believe plural for walrus is either walrus or walruses. On, again, the mint green card base, we have Baby, It's Cold Outside, with a little bit of decoupage going on for you here, just a tiny bit. So here, I die cut a piece of pattern paper and a piece of white cardstock with a lawn fawn stitched rectangle die. I divided those in half. Let's see, I think that's an 1.75 inches on the bottom and 2.5 inches, 2.25 inches on the top. So that's our little ground, our little sky. I matted those down to a thin black mat. And then I took our igloo ephemera that had the walrus on them and attached that to the center panel using some foam tape. And then I added 2 more of the single walrus on top of the walrus below that using some more foam tape. So we've got, actually, if you count the background, we've got 3 little layers here. Really fun. Lizzie, I hope you like my do-it-yourself decoupage. I did trim a little bit of the white border away from our Wilfred Brimley walrus right here at his belly so that their chests could be closer together to each other. I stamped Baby It's Cold Outside, again, using cracked pistachio distress oxide ink and embossed that with some clear embossing powder. I think that ink goes perfectly with this mint green cardstock. I glued a few of my large snowflake sequins down to our card base, tucked them up underneath our background, glued everything to our card base. I think this is a great example of perfectly illustrating a stamped sentiment. Baby, it's cold outside our hut, outside our igloo. I did add, of course, I'm obsessed with them. I did add some more of those little snowflake sequins here in the sky above the igloo. Baby, it's cold outside. I'd like to go on. Baby, it's cold outside. That's definitely a duet. We also got a ton of penguins in our embellishment bag. So many ephemera penguins. We're back to the soft pink card base, and we've got It's penguining to look a lot like Christmas. There's a pun for you. It's penguining to look a lot like Christmas. There's my best Andy Williams for you. It's penguining to look a lot like Christmas. I think that pun is just a hoot. Now, again, I die cut a piece of pattern paper and a little piece of white cardstock with a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die. I did shorten that up a bit, so I did some partial die cutting on that. My whole background here is actually 3 3/4 by 3 1/4. This is only about 5/8 of an inch of some white snow for the bottom of that. I glued those together and then mounted those to a thin black frame. That's actually black tie glitter paper for our black mat behind there. Now this tree is actually 2 of the trees from our ephemera pack. This first one actually had the 2 deer in front of it, but our little penguin is hiding the deer. So I took the second tree that matched it and put it behind that first tree and then trimmed away the white border on our front tree so that it blended in with that back tree, glued those together, made a little bit taller of a Christmas tree to go behind our little penguin family here. I also trimmed away some of the white border around their flippers here so that they could actually be touching, holding hands there. I glued these guys up front with some foam tape, glued our panel to the cardstock after I put a couple of 1.5 inch pieces of that pink tree border paper on the 2 sides here. I outlined those with some black glitter peel-offs, glued this down on top of them, and then finally added a bunch of, I believe those are Studio Katia Cupid's Kiss sequins there. I have pink sequins in my stash. They add a nice little sparkle and shine, really Christmas up that tree there. I did print this sentiment directly on the card base using my Silhouette software and the noteworthy font. It's penguining to look a lot like Christmas. You can resist a pun like that when you've got all these cute penguins in your kit. Okay, we're working with multiples here. So our next card here on the navy card base takes advantage of the fact that we had 10 little bunnies in our ephemera pack. So bunnies in a large number, I thought I couldn't resist. And we have our Merry Christmas card with all 10 of those bunnies. And on the inside it says, from the whole family. There's the whole family. Mom and Dad and all the kids. We've got the younger ones are obviously twins, and all of those teenagers. Oh my heavens. Merry Christmas from the whole family. This card just tickles me to no end. I stamped the sentiment here in the top middle between Ma and Pop up here with some Versamark ink and embossed that with some white embossing powder. Then I simply laid out all of our bunnies together, mounted them up with some foam tape, and then printed this sentiment on the inside of my writing surface. This is using the Rostilla font from the whole family. I thought that came really close to matching the script on our sentiments. Merry Christmas from the whole family, and that is one hell of a family. If you have 8 kids, I feel sorry for you. And that brings us to card number 9 on the soft gray card base. Now, I was playing around with, we got those wood veneer die cut trees, and I was playing around with them, putting them in lines, trying to figure out something fun to do with them, when all of a sudden I started thinking, well, we make wreaths out of the branches of trees. What if we made a wreath from the trees themselves? This is our Christmas wishes card using that great sentiment die from our die pack, and all of those wood veneer die cut trees in a fun little wreath on the top of our card. I die cut a piece of those pine needle pattern paper with a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die, matted that on a piece of dark green cardstock, not before I cut out the Christmas wishes from the middle of our mat. I die cut that out from the middle of our cardstock and then glued those two together. I colored all of our trees with some Distress Oxide ink, peeled paint, and forest moss, and cracked pistachio. And then I die cut a piece of that same dark green cardstock with a couple more infinity circle dies just to make a little background wreath, and then glued all of our trees to that shape and spaced them out evenly. I took some fun little like star sequins from my stash and glued those on top of all the trees. They practically light up when those catch the light. I love those little ornaments on the tree. Of course, this is also a little bow tied with one of the ribbons from our kit. I glued our background down to our soft gray card base. I added the wreath on top with some foam tape behind the green part of the wreath, glued the bow on, glued our sentiment down after I took a little bit of a sparkle pen to that and added a little bit of glitter to our sentiment there. And finally, I dug out this cute little crystal Christmas tree gem from my stash. I got those many, many years ago. Worked perfectly in this instant Christmas wishes with a lovely Christmas tree wreath. Now, I was determined to find some use for this little polar bear's die in our die set. It has that heart-shaped wreath that goes up around them. This, of course, has the heart-shaped wreath cut away, but this gave me an idea. For my last card here, we're back on the marine blue card base, and we've got our winter wishes card with those great polar bears at the top of our little panel here. So I just did some partial die cutting on a panel of white cardstock way at the top and was careful not to cut out the bottom part of their little snowbank. And then I trimmed away the wreath part of that and then finished the curve of their hill to the edges of that white cardstock. I thought that worked really well and really gave them a nice way off in the distance spot to be on top of their mountain. I trimmed this white panel down to 3¼ inches by 4½ inches. To the top of our polar bear's head there to the bottom is 4½ inches. I cut a piece of dark blue cardstock from my stash. This is 3¾ inches by 5 inches. And those two fit together very nicely with the dark blue giving us a nice thick mat around this white panel here. Then I was thinking about snow when it popped into my mind that I have this great old Lawn Fawn die. This is called the Starry Sky die that I knew did corners, and I thought that would work really nicely in our corners up here to give us some stars in the sky. I did die cut my Winter Wishes sentiment from right here in the center of our dark blue piece before I glued these two together. I glued them together after I had die cut all of the stars. It was fairly simple. I think this is designed to go across 4¼ inches. So I had to do a little partial die cutting so I didn't double cut in the center right there, but it worked out very nicely. I really love the soft blue coming through the stars, and that also gave me all of these stars and dots to put on my white panel here. So I glued the background down to our marine blue card base. I glued the white panel on top of that panel. Then I glued our tree ephemera piece right down flat on that. I glued our sentiment with her wishes on that white panel along with all the stars and dots, and then these two polar bears I fussy cut from the polar bear pattern paper and attached them to this card with some foam tape. I love those two kissing polar bears. Winter wishes. Now this is, I would generally never send a card to anybody with winter wishes, but I thought this worked so well all together, both the sentiment and the bears and that really adorable little polar bear die in our kit. Love this. I love the look of this card. And that's us. That's our 10 cards with the Love From Lizi November 2020 card kit. Mostly holiday cards and winter cards, but we've got a couple here that are not necessarily Christmas themed. Most of them are, though. And lots of pink penguins. I, of course, have gobs of supplies left over. I actually used all of the cardstock, but since I wasn't doing any alcohol marker coloring, I still have those 2 sheets of white cardstock. I used a little bit of our peel-offs. I used every stamp in the stamp set. Woohoo! I used one of our acetate sheets. I used all 4 of our dies in our set. Woohoo! I used some of the glitter enamel dots. I used a little bit of the ribbon. I used actually quite a bit of our ephemera pieces. That's a much smaller stash now there too. And I actually used 8 out of the 16 pattern papers. So I have 8 pattern papers that have yet to be adulterated. They are full and complete 8, so that's half of those I used. I think the only thing I really didn't use was the sequins. I must have been just over enamored with my little snowflake sequins this month that I never got to our sequin mix. I think that's the only thing in this kit that didn't get used this month. All of that, of course, will find loving homes in my stash. As of posting, this kit is still available, so if you'd like to grab one for yourself, please use my links in the description down below. Now, this kit did come out very late. Lizi was having some delivery problems and supply problems. They're having just as many problems with COVID over in England as we are here in the United States. So because of the tardiness of this kit and unknowable restrictions due to COVID and deliveries being delayed, Lizi's actually going to skip the December kit. There will be no Love From Lizi December 2020 kit in order to get rolling and try to get the January kit together. But Lizi has also released a couple of mega packs and a couple of special edition card kits that will also be linked down below if you are worried about getting through the month of December without your Love From Lizi fix. Those might be able to fill the void. I, of course, understand completely and send healthy and happy thoughts to all of the people in England. I really had a good time putting these cards together. I always enjoy an opportunity to do a little bit of coloring. I tell you, if you take some care with your reverse stamping, you can get really good results. I don't think you can really tell the difference between these two deer at all. You would think they were 2 different stamps completely. Love these. So much fun. I love my little penguin puns this month and my Christmas tree wreath. Oh, I had a good time with this. I hope you enjoyed this too. Please let me know which cards cards are your favorite. And thank you so much for sharing your time with me here. I hope you know that it means the world to me. Please keep safe. Please keep your family safe. The holidays are coming up. Wear your masks, wash your hands, avoid big crowds and enclosed spaces. Thank you so much for being a part of my wacky 2020 year. We'll be keeping an eye out for Lizi's January kit to be released, hopefully around December 19th. In the meantime, I send all of you healthy and happy blessings for your holiday. Have a marvelous Thanksgiving. I hope to see you around Christmas time with the new release of Lizi's January kit. Please remember to like me, list me, pin me, post me, share me with all of your friends. Don't run with scissors. And as always, I wish you happy crafting. If you'd like more detailed information, better pictures, and product links, please visit my website at cardcutups.com.